Hello and good morning, and of course, my cat is joining me. She cannot stand me doing something else other than paying attention to her. It is Tuesday, July 2nd, and I hope everybody is having a good start to their morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Ugh, let me fix myself here. I have my lighting on. Ah, I think I'm getting sick or I have allergies or something. I had a migraine all weekend. But anyway, there goes the cat again. I love that the cat ran off and now she's yowling. Cats are fun. I love my cat. All right, pulling up my playlist for today. Of course, have some Karen Reed videos. How can I not? Let me find the first one. Normally I put them in order. Okay, here we go. I found it. Yeah, I don't know. My sinuses are kind of bothering me, but my headache is gone. So we were supposed to pick up kiddo yesterday, but she's sick. Even though she has her own room and stuff here, she's home. We might get her today. We'll see. All right, now on to the circus that is the Karen Reed trial.
The judge declares a mistrial in Karen Reed's murder trial. A jury of 6 women and 6 men say they were deeply divided and simply could not agree on a verdict. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Lisa Hughes.
And I'm David Wade. The other big headline here is that the DA's office says it will retry this case. The jurors spent 27 hours over 5 days considering the charges. The most serious, of course, second-degree murder. There was also a manslaughter while operating under the influence, and for that count, jurors could have picked 2 less serious charges, involuntary manslaughter or motor vehicle homicide. And the third count was leaving the scene of bodily injury or death. But again, they could not come to a unanimous decision. We have team coverage tonight. We begin with WBZ's Christina Rex, who was in the courtroom for today's decision. Christina?
Yeah, David, so many weeks of this trial. That's part of what made it such an exceptional case. A nearly 10-week trial, 74 witnesses, over 600 pieces of evidence, all to end with no real closure for any participant in this case here. And you could really feel that heaviness in the room as the judge declared that mistrial.
Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
That statement from the judge bringing strong emotion from the mother of John O'Keefe. The O'Keefe family, as well as the Reeds, will have to sit through another trial after the 12-person jury of 6 men and 6 women was unable to reach a unanimous decision in this one.
The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs.
The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office releasing this statement immediately after, saying we thank the O'Keefe family for their commitment and dedication to this long process. They maintained sight of the true core of this case to find justice for John O'Keefe, saying the Commonwealth intends to retry this case.
The Commonwealth did their worst. Guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail.
10 weeks and 74 witnesses and no closure for those involved. Karen Reed and her lawyers hugged her family before they exited court, just briefly addressing reporters outside.
I want to send a message to all of her supporters out there. Your support was invaluable. Touched, and we ask for your continued support. I'm not from Texas like my colleague here. I'm a Boston kid. But I'll repeat what he said, which is, we ain't got no quit.
And I do want to point out Karen Reed did not say anything to reporters outside the courthouse after that mistrial was declared. She has been pretty vocal with reporters. I've spoken to her many times outside of court, until the last few days, when she's really started to shy away from the cameras. The O'Keefe family also left the court silently, not saying anything to any reporters outside of the courthouse. Now, here we are back to square one, July 22nd. There will be a status hearing back at this courthouse for this case all over again. Live in Dedham, Christina Rex, WBZ News.
All right, Christina, thank you. You can tell quiet behind her right now. Of course, Reed supporters have been outside of that courtroom for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and today they cheered. They were all smiles as Reed walked out of the courtroom. WBZ's Tammy Mutasa continues our breaking team coverage from Dedham. And Tammy, some of these people were there every single day.
Yeah, David and Lisa, they were. But, you know, this mistrial is not the outcome anyone wanted. On one hand, Reed supporters are happy she's not behind bars, but they think she is not guilty. And on the other hand, supporters for Officer John O'Keefe say he still deserves real justice. Deeply divided in the courtroom, deeply divided on the street. Karen Reed supporters erupting in cheers, then quickly dispersing after a mistrial was declared in her high-profile murder trial.
We are not happy it's a mistrial. We wanted Karen Reed to be declared not guilty. We know Karen Reed is not guilty. A first grader will tell you that she's not guilty.
The tension building for 5 days as the deadlocked jury could not overcome their impasse. Police barricading the front of the Norfolk County Superior Court as the news arrived.
How do I feel? You know, I feel that there was significant evidence by the defense that showed that Karen Reed did not kill John O'Keefe. Karen Reed was framed, pure and simple.
No justice, no peace! Before the mistrial, dressed in blue, supporters for Officer John O'Keefe took their own corner of the court. Some saying a hung jury is better than a not guilty verdict because Officer O'Keefe still deserves justice.
I could not believe that people actually believe this conspiracy theory because she is clearly guilty, and it makes me really, really sad.
So whether some believe Karen Reed killed her boyfriend with her SUV or that she was framed, the division in the jury reflecting in the community. And now, no one wins.
For a long time, I believed she was innocent and I didn't support him, okay? And then over time, I looked further into the evidence and I realized, oh my God, she did it.
And again, both sides saying they'll be back here again when this entire process starts over. And it is hard to believe for some people that this process is starting all over again. But then again, it is also not. Live in Dedham, Tammy Mutasa, WBZ News.
All right, so everyone right now asking the question, what happens next?
Yeah, let's bring in our chief investigator, Cheryl Fiandaca, who, oh, by the way, is also a lawyer. And Cheryl, the state says they'll retry the case, but it doesn't come without some challenges because, boy, there was some messy stuff here in what they were putting forward.
For sure. I mean, one of the things, and you and I have talked about this, has been, you know, the charges in this case. A second-degree murder charge, some people believe that that is overcharging in this case. So maybe the prosecution will take a look at that. In addition, they have some concerns with their lead investigator in the case who has had some challenges to his credibility based on some text messaging and some relationships that he may have had with some of the witnesses involved. So conflicts of interest coming up, and he's also under investigation by his own department. So all concerns going forward for the prosecution.
Okay, and then from the defense, we're seeing them right here with Karen Reed outside the courthouse. Could they choose to appeal altogether right now?
Well, they can appeal. It's basically called a de novo appeal, and they can basically appeal the fact that to say to the appeals court, there's not a sufficient amount of evidence to convict her. You couldn't convince 12 people to convict her, so this case should be dismissed. As to whether or not that's successful, that'll be something that we'll wait to see. But the status hearing, as Christina pointed out, is at the end of July. So we should have a better idea of what's going to happen with the case at that point.
And then just quickly, anyone who thinks that this next trial is happening anytime soon, that's not the case.
It doesn't look likely. I mean, you know, she's going to have to assemble a defense team. They'll have to retry this whole thing. And we don't know what the court's calendar is like. It's pretty full these days.
Right. Cheryl.
Calendar's pretty full these days. Yeah, if they do retry it, I think they need to go to a new area. So there was some murders in Cape Coral, Florida, and the murderer has the same name as Deadpool. So he's being called the Deadpool killer, which don't call him that. Deadpool is a good guy. This guy's a piece of crap.
Convicted Cape Coral murderer Wade Wilson will soon find out if he will go to prison for life or be put to death. I'm Fox 4 senior reporter Caitlin Knapp, and I dug into his background after the state attorney made an interesting comment to me about Wilson. The comment led me to track down Wilson's ex-girlfriend, who believes the murders could have been avoided if Palm Beach County deputies arrested Wilson for her reported crime.
We've heard from many women who have been victimized by the defendant, but maybe didn't go forward on charges or for whatever reason didn't find justice in the justice system.
That's what sparked this story after weeks of covering Wilson's trial and death penalty recommendation. Kelly Matthews dated Wilson and was interviewed by our West Palm Beach station shortly after he was named a person of interest in October 2019.
He kidnapped me and almost killed me.
And most recently, Matthews has been vocal on TikTok.
I dated this man.
I don't want to be quiet about this.
Quiet about what she claims Wilson did to her in Palm Beach County. Matthews met Wilson in 2018 online, calling him charismatic and polite. She said things changed when he started reportedly using drugs.
It was just like a very toxic relationship, but he was never violent, ever.
Until February 18th, 2019, she claims. Matthews says Wilson agreed to go to a rehab in the Keys, but Matthews said that wasn't true, and they got into an argument.
And so I got back in the car and put my seatbelt on, and that's when he started choking me.
She says Wilson then cut off her clothes and eventually put her in the back of her car. Matthews says he sexually assaulted her, tied and gagged her.
At some point, he had bit my face.
She says he drove them to the Keys and Wilson got out and left. Matthews says she drove home.
I should have stopped at like a gas station or something, but I think I thought no one would believe me.
She and her mom called police. Matthews says she went to the hospital where they did a sexual assault kit and took photos of her injuries. In a police report I obtained from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, it says they interviewed Wilson, who did not admit to any assault. The report says Matthews did have bruising on her neck and a cut to her lip, but they did not arrest Wilson.
He was like, no, that like this is hearsay. Like you don't have any probable cause.
He, as in the detective, who also put in the report, there are no witnesses to the alleged crime and no evidence to establish probable cause.
Do you feel like the system has failed you?
Absolutely.
I reached out to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, asking why they did not arrest Wilson despite visible injuries.
I don't understand how someone can do something so severe to somebody else and not even get detained for it.
About 8 months later, Wilson was in Cape Coral and killed Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. Matthews sees his conviction and death penalty recommendation as some sort of justice.
I feel like this is good for everyone that he's hurt.
Matthews says she wants to talk about what happened for her own sake and for other domestic violence cases.
I want people to know that they can leave, like get help.
As for Wilson, he's in jail, waiting to see if judge will agree to the jury's recommendation and sentence him to death.
We're a strong group of people that he didn't beat. And unfortunately, it took 2 women dying for him to get noticed. You didn't win, and you're going to get what you deserve.
As of Monday evening, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office says that they are currently working on my request. Matthews says she wants to file a lawsuit against the sheriff's office for the outcome of her case. Again, Wilson will be sentenced on July 23rd, and I will be in that courtroom to bring you the decision.
I am pretty sure he's going to get the death penalty. He got... the jury already recommended the death penalty. It wasn't unanimous, but Florida changed it to where it doesn't need to be unanimous for the death penalty. Ron DeSantis changed that, so we'll see what the judge thinks. If anybody deserves the death penalty, I definitely think it's that guy. He would be a good-looking dude if he hadn't tattooed his face like that and also, didn't beat women and kill them. Also not a good trait in a man. So a few days ago I had showed a video of a judge that was really drunk and had hit a cop and refused to identify herself, just acting a fool. Like, definitely not how you expect a judge to act, especially with police. Well, the Georgia Supreme Court removed her because they don't want her in office. I feel like a villain because my cat is right here. And I'm just, but anyway.
And today, the Georgia Supreme Court removed a Douglas County judge arrested outside of a Buckhead lounge. We've been talking about this story all week. But Judge Christina Peterson, who you just saw there, she's not losing her job due to the felony charges she faces after allegedly hitting a police officer.
That's right, Faith. This is all in response to a number of ethics charges brought by the state commission that investigates claims of judicial misconduct. 11 Alive's Teresa Bowles spoke with Peterson's attorneys today and explains how the panel came to this decision.
In an 80-page decision, the Georgia Supreme Court laid out 28 counts of misconduct and 30 alleged violations for former Douglas County probate judge Christina Peterson. Those violations include improper conduct toward county officials and inappropriate use of court resources. Peterson's attorney said in part, quote, "I'm pleased that we were able to provide her with a vigorous defense in court, getting numerous counts dismissed and fighting off 2 motions for interim suspension, even though today we lost the ultimate battle." On social media, Peterson posted, "This is a setup, not justice." However, some Douglasville residents tell me she's earned her consequences, especially after the body camera footage of her arrest.
Do your job the right way. 28 violation, that's a lot. That's a lot.
A spokesperson for Douglas County tells me that senior judge John McClain will likely appoint a retired judge to keep the courts running until Peterson's term ends in December. In Douglas County, Teresa Bowles, 11.
Yeah, and if you guys saw the video, she was acting an absolute fool. Like, she was refusing to give her name, yelling at them. She had hit one of the cops. Oh, there goes the cat. So now she's going to start yelling again. But yeah, she was acting an absolute fool, and it was horrible. All right, so let's see. If you've seen, I don't know if you guys saw that they arrested the Uvalde police chief for his failure to act in the Uvalde shooting. Him and one of the other police officers have been indicted and are both of their mugshots have been shared. I mean,
we now have details from the indictment of Pete Arredondo, the former Uvalde School District police chief. Arredondo and former school officer Adrian Gonzalez were criminally charged for their handling of the mass shooting 2 years ago at Robb Elementary. Fox 4 Stephen Dial read the indictment and is in studio with more. Stephen.
Clarice, the indictment alleges that then Chief Arredondo knowingly and recklessly put the students' lives in danger. Some lawyers are now questioning the likelihood of him actually being convicted. Court documents detail the first criminal charges to come from the deadly mass shooting in Uvalde 2 years ago. Thursday, former school district police chief Pete Arredondo was indicted on 10 counts of endangering a child. And former officer Adrian Gonzalez is facing 29 charges of endangering a child.
But it's rare that you see a law enforcement official indicted and successfully prosecuted for failing to discharge their duties.
We asked former Dallas County prosecutor Russell Wilson to interpret the charges. The indictment says Arredondo failed to identify the incident as an active shooter incident. 21 people were killed, 19 of them students. Hundreds of law enforcement responded but waited more than an hour to take down the gunman.
What are we waiting on? Does anybody know?
Arredondo surrendered Thursday night. He was briefly booked into the Uvalde County Jail and released. The district attorney did not comment on the criminal case against either former officer.
There may be some question as to whether or not you can indict a police officer for discretionary discharge of their duties. So I would imagine that there would be substantial questions regarding that.
Wilson pointed to the 2023 acquittal of Broward County Deputy Scott Peterson, who was charged after the 2018 mass shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida. Peterson was charged with multiple counts of child neglect, culpable negligence, and perjury. As the school resource officer, he was accused of not taking action when the shooting was in progress.
The officer did have to stand trial certainly was, placed in jeopardy of going to prison for a substantial amount of time. And that process is rigorous. It's hard on the officer. It's hard on everybody involved. And so I would say that this will probably be the start of a significant legal battle.
Now, it's unclear if any other officers will be charged. Wilson told me that the indictment details aren't clear enough for him to say if more officers.
I'm glad. I would rather die a hero than live a coward. And what they did that day was cowardly. Waiting an hour and leaving people to bleed out and children to die scared, waiting for help. How dare you? I know that Brett Cross, the father of Uzi, watched the perp walk, and I think Brett has probably been treated the worst out of any of the parents because of how vocal he's been, and he's not always the most politically correct. He got arrested for cursing at a city council meeting, or I think it was a city council meeting. But I've seen way worse behavior in other cities and stuff from people at city council meetings. He said like 2 or 3 curse words and they arrested him. I've seen people like lose their shit and like go absolutely nuts and nothing happened to them. So I think this will help validate Brett's feelings a little bit, but nothing's going to bring their children back. Yeah, if you Google it, Google Brett Cross arrested for cursing in city council. I swear to God it happened, and it's the most, like, how could you as a city do that to somebody that is upset because his son was murdered? Like, give him some grace. And I mean, sometimes I accidentally curse. I do. I try not to, but sometimes I accidentally curse. It happens. So the next couple stories are going to be a little tough. I'm going to talk about a couple murders that recently happened in Texas. We have 2 different stories of migrants that have murdered people. There's one that just happened both of these are in Texas. One was in Irving, one was in Houston. The Chick-fil-A shooting, 2 people were killed. And the Houston story is the 12-year-old young girl, Jocelyn, that was murdered. So I'm going to let these 2 stories play back to back. And then I'm going to talk about Jocelyn for a minute.
The victims of a double murder at a Chick-fil-A restaurant were a father of 4 providing for his family in Central America and a grandmother who leaves behind a grieving family here in North Texas. Brian Godoy and Patricia Portillo were victims of what Irving police are calling a targeted shooting. They both worked at the Chick-fil-A where they were killed. The suspect's wife also worked there. She was the one who actually identified her husband as the murderer. Fox 4's Peyton Yeager with more from the victims' families and friends tonight. Peyton.
Steve, and these 2 grieving families are still trying to figure out why the shooting took place here inside the Irving Chick-fil-A. One family is working to have a proper burial in Guatemala. Another family is trying to raise funds for a funeral next week here in North Texas. Friday, fresh flowers surround photos of the 2 Irving Chick-fil-A employees shot and killed while on the job Wednesday. 31-year-old Brian Godoy, a father of 4 from Guatemala, has now been identified as one of the victims. The second, 49-year-old Patricia Portillo, a mother and a grandmother. 37-year-old Oved Bernardo Mendoza Argueta, a citizen of El Salvador, is charged with capital murder. Argueta is also on an immigration hold, according to ICE. Irving police believe Argueta carried out a targeted attack at the restaurant off MacArthur Boulevard in the Las Colinas neighborhood. Police revealed Argueta's wife works at the Chick-fil-A and she positively identified her husband as the gunman. But police have not said why the 2 were targeted or what led up to the shooting. Friday, Fox 4 learned new details about the 2 victims. Godoy leaves behind a wife and family in Guatemala. Elizabeth Godoy sent Fox 4 pictures and videos of her husband with his children. In a statement, she told Fox 4, "We depended fully on him. We don't have more family." Godoy moved to North Texas alone, where he worked multiple jobs in order to send money back to his family. Godoy's hometown friend Kevin Lopez tells Fox 4 through a translator he went after the dream of giving his family something better. Meanwhile, Portillo's daughter spoke to Fox 4 off camera on Friday, saying Portillo leaves behind grandchildren who now will grow up without her. Steve, and it's still unclear when this Irving Chick-fil-A will reopen. It still has a window that's boarded up and also barricades still around it. Steve?
All right, Peyton Yeager. Peyton, thank you.
New at 10 tonight, we are getting brand new details in the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare. We want to thank you for joining us. I'm Keith Garvin.
Good evening. I'm Daniela Guzman. Some newly unsealed warrants reveal these images from a bar and a secret meetup with HPD helped investigators track down those suspects. KPRC2's Bryce Newberry has been following this case since the very beginning, and he's live tonight in the newsroom with what he's learned. Bryce?
Yeah, Keith and Daniela, these new warrants reveal that Jocelyn Nungare's suspected killers watched TV with their roommate when their images flashed across the screen. These records also show investigators did not even know their names when they moved in to arrest them after getting help from a tipster hundreds of miles away. Suspected killers Johan Martinez Rangel and Franklin Pena took these pictures at an Ojos Locos in North Houston just hours before 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare was found strangled in this bayou June 17th. Investigators released these images of them the next night.
Some police looking for two persons of interest.
These are brand new photos tonight of the men homicide detectives want to speak with.
They saw themselves on TV while watching the news with their roommate. According to this new search warrant, the roommate tried not to react, but instead texted a cousin in Laredo. He was scared and did not know what to do because he was living with two guys responsible for the death of a 12-year-old girl. By Wednesday night, the cousin contacted Houston police from 350 miles away. The roommate made up an excuse to leave the apartment. Houston police picked him up not far away to take him downtown for questioning.
The intervention of that person helped prevent these two defendants from fleeing.
Another roommate, the suspect's boss, then came to police headquarters telling investigators he gave Pena a ride home when Pena admitted they made a mistake after partying on Sunday night and hurt someone who was now dead. Both witnesses identified Martinez Rangel and Pena in the surveillance images, appearing to be in the same clothing they wore at the bar in a photo with their roommate the night of the murder. Investigators worked feverishly in the overnight hours, got the arrest warrant signed around 5:30 Thursday morning. The SWAT gang and homicide units then moved in to make the arrests for capital murder. And prosecutors say the suspects asked their boss for money to leave town. One of them allegedly cut off his ICE-issued ankle monitor after Jocelyn's murder. Tonight, both men here illegally from Venezuela are being held on $10 million bonds. Investigators are still awaiting lab results to determine if they'll be eligible for the death penalty. Live in the newsroom.
Those results came in. They are eligible for the death penalty, by the way. I'm going to cry talking about this case because I went to her funeral and, you know, listening to her family speak, learning about her, she reminds me so much of my roommate's daughter. And she's not one of those 12-year-olds that doesn't look 12. She looks 12. You look at her and she looks 12. So there's no mistake when those men saw her that they didn't know how old she was, and that one of those men has two daughters. Like, how could you do that? They did confirm that she was sexually assaulted. So the evidence came out that for 2 hours they had her under that bridge. And it's just, this case is really personal, and even though I didn't know her, it's definitely getting to me, and I'm not gonna lie that it's not. It is. When it comes to children, it's extra hard, and to know what she went through is really hard. And, I have one of my friends is helping advocate for that family. I've never seen the city this upset. I'm glad to see the city come together for this family. It shouldn't take a 12-year-old being raped and murdered for them to finally see what's going on. This is stuff that I have been talking about for years, that me and my friends that are advocates have been screaming from the rooftops for people to listen to us. And it wasn't until this poor little girl died that they're finally paying attention. And she deserved to become a teenager. Jocelyn loved music. She loved all kinds of music. One of her favorite songs is a really old song, which is Coney Island Baby. She loves Stranger Things. She kept saying that one of the guys on the show, Michael, was going to be her husband. I know more about her than I do a lot of people now. And Jocelyn is all of our child now. And, oh, God. I know that if something like that happened to Kiddo, I would snap. I would absolutely snap. And I would end up, I think I would probably end up on court TV or something, hopping over. But unfortunately, it took this poor little girl dying for people to see what is going on and the issues with our bond laws. So in Texas, it is your constitutional right to have bond. It, and we've tried to change these laws to where judges can use discretion if you have a history of violence or the case is particularly heinous, and they can't. We've tried to get those laws passed and they have failed. So now there may be more support for these bills because of what happened to this poor little girl. So right now they're on $10 million bond, but it may become a no bond situation, and they're going to go after the death penalty, knowing what happened to her for the last 2 hours of her life. And I assume that the family only wanted the viewing for them, because when it was the public funeral, it was closed. And I'm praying that that is the reason that the casket was closed, that the family just wanted that for themselves. Because I can't even fathom the thought that there's another reason why they needed to have a closed casket. No, they do. So they're not out on bond. They had to be issued a bond. That's the problem. They absolutely had to be issued a bond. And the judge that they went ahead of is known for giving low bonds to violent offenders. But because everybody's so pissed and watching this case, they both got a $10 million bond. But people are screaming and yelling that they want no bond. But legally, they can't do that. Legally, our constitutional rights, everybody gets bond. Everybody gets bond. So there are some cases where some people should not get bond. This is one of those cases. Yeah, Megan, you missed me crying and talking about this really horrific case. Uh, but I pray for quick, uncomplicated justice for the family. I did end up giving one of the books that I have to the family, the What Now book. I hope that it helps, like even if it helps 0.5% with this journey. But my friend April Aguirre is a fierce advocate, and she's helping the family, and I would walk through fire with her. Um, so her and I and my friend Michelle, like there's so many strong women that I have been able to connect with, that we're going to make a change. We're going to go to the Capitol. We're going to testify in Jocelyn's honor and get some of these laws changed, because it does need to change. Judges do need discretion, especially in cases like this. There are some cases where they deserve no bond. So, Carrie, no, the guy was not out on bond. Both of these guys were new to the country. One of them had only been in the country 23 days. They did have an ICE monitor on, an ICE ankle monitor, but the idiot didn't cut it off until after the murder. But anyway, I will be following this case very closely. It is very personal to me. I want to make sure that this family is supported in every way humanly possible, and that, you know, people don't come out of the woodwork and use them. The GoFundMe has raised over $100,000, and to me, like, $100,000 is nothing compared to what they're going through. They're going to have to move. I moved. I couldn't stand to live where I lived anymore after Austin was murdered there. I don't even drive by it when I'm in that city. His parents got him buried further than they would if they got him buried in that city, so they don't, because otherwise they would have to drive by where he was murdered. So, you know, that's something to consider. They have to move. A bunch of the family members have been out of work, and they're going to need therapy and medical care and all that. $100,000, even if they got $1 million, nothing is going to bring that little girl back. Nothing is going to fill that hole. You could give me all the money in the world, and you can't fix the pain and what's going on in here and here. So, and there were some people that had issues with it, that they got that much money. They deserve every penny. So, moving on to New Jersey. New Jersey man in Florida attacking somebody with a hammer over a video game. I don't know what the hell is going on with people over feuding in a video game. Like, video games are not that serious.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on First Coast News at 6. I'm Jeannie Blaylock.
And I'm Anthony Austin. Our top story tonight at 6. A man from New Jersey is behind bars, and he faced a judge today after being accused of flying to Florida to attack someone with a hammer. And this was all because of a dispute in an online video game.
Rich Donnelly is on your side. He joins us live now in Nassau County. And Rich, tell us more about what happened in court today.
Well, Jeannie, we could tell you that Edward Kang and his attorneys asked the judge to set bond for his second-degree attempted murder charge after he was accused of flying to Florida from New Jersey and beating a man from Nassau County with a hammer, all because of a dispute during an online video game. The judge denied the motion for bond. Edward Kang stood before a judge in a Zoom call from the Nassau County Jail in a bond hearing for his second-degree attempted murder and armed burglary charges. His mother joined the Zoom call from New Jersey as Kang's defense attorney made the case to release his client from custody.
My client, as I understand it, has no prior criminal record of any kind, not as an adult, not as a juvenile, has never had any contact whatsoever with the criminal justice system.
Prosecutors didn't care about his past before Sunday morning.
He has no ties to the community. He traveled here from New York with the express purpose of committing a crime in Florida in our community here.
Kang was arrested on Sunday. The Nassau County Sheriff's Office says he flew from New Jersey to Jacksonville on Friday to carry out his crimes. This is a picture of the hammer Kang is accused of using in this attack. Store employees at the Ace Hardware on South 8th Street in Fernandina Beach confirmed to First Coast News that Kang bought a hammer at their store this weekend. Employees at the Ocean Coast Hotel also confirmed to First Coast News that Kang booked this room at their hotel and had a checkout date of Sunday, the same day as the attack. Kang could be seen wiping away tears multiple times while the prosecution made its case to the judge.
Attempted murder with a weapon is a first-degree felony punishable by life, and we're asking that you detain him without bond.
As Kang continued to wipe away tears, the judge issued his ruling.
I must order pretrial detention. I believe that no conditions of release or bail will reasonably protect the community from risk of physical harm.
Edward Kang was denied bond and remains here in the Nassau County Jail while he awaits trial after being accused of second-degree attempted murder for attacking a man with a hammer over a dispute in a video game. The county clerk's office says that the state attorney's office could upgrade his charges. Reporting live in Nassau County, Rich Donnelly, First Coast News.
Like, no, dude, you really planned that out. You planned a trip to attack somebody over a video game. See, and in this case, because it's not Texas, they can deny bond. But Texas cannot. I used to get mad at judges for not denying bond, but then I learned about the Texas Constitution. They literally cannot deny bond. They can deny bond like once, but then they have to set it within a certain amount of time anyway. And generally when a bond is so high, they have to revisit it and lower it at some point. So, yeah. Like if this guy doesn't get bond, I'm pretty sure those other guys, you know, in Texas definitely deserve no bond. Yeah, let's see. Proctor yelling at people to get off his lawn. I'm sure you guys saw that. So, some U.S. Marshals found 200 missing children in a 6-week operation. Thank God they found those children.
Welcome back, everyone. There are an estimated 2,300 children missing every day in America. That means a child goes missing or is abducted in this country, in the United States, every 40 seconds. Last year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children worked on nearly 29,000 cases. Today, 90% of those cases are resolved. The U.S. Marshals Service wanted to raise that number to 100. It has a special task force to find missing children before they end up being trafficked into gangs, prostitution, or even worse. The task force just wrapped up its second ever nationwide operation, and News Nation was there for the ride. News Nation correspondent Evan Lambert joining Marshals to see them in action. Joining us now, Evan, what an exciting story. Tell us more.
Hannah, the U.S. Marshals are already the best equipped federal law enforcement agency to track down fugitives. For more than the last month, though, they used those skills to find dozens of missing and endangered children.
To blame. It should have been the adults that carried that shame and blame, not children.
40 years ago, Ophelia Flores survived the horrors of human trafficking. She was treated as a criminal and not the child victim she was. Now, the U.S. Marshals are on a mission to prevent other young people from experiencing the damage of sex trafficking, drugs, or a life of crime.
This should be a priority for the country, is that we have, unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of kids that are out there that are missing. Some of them are runaways. Some of them now are going to be victims of trafficking and prostitution. And we owe it. We have an obligation to try to find them.
I've got a picture from a somewhat recent picture from an older case. I'm going to pass it around and take a look at it.
On an early May afternoon, marshals and local law enforcement agencies are preparing to do what they do best, go out and find someone. But it's not a dangerous criminal they're after. It's one of hundreds of thousands of missing children who could soon become victims. They've knocked on hundreds of doors across 7 cities over 10 weeks. And News Nation got a unique and up-close view of their recovery mission. We're with the U.S. Marshals Service in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're working with other local agencies as well, trying to essentially arrest a 17-year-old who is also considered missing. This is part of Operation We Will Find You, the second year they're doing that. At this home, ultimately, they didn't find the teen they were seeking, but they aren't giving up. It's on to the next. Here they face resistance, taking out a 15-year-old who has run away before with his older brother.
So we just did the workup and found out that they were staying with in the house we just went to. We thought we would find both the brothers there, but it was only one there.
Minutes later, and really just around the corner, marshals returned the boy to his mom. In an exclusive sit-down interview, Director of the U.S. Marshals Service, Ronald Davis, shares with us the goal of the mission. What does success look like to you this time around?
One child recovered is important. We want to recover as many as we can.
During the mission, marshals found 200 children. They removed 123 from dangerous situations and located 77 safely across 7 states.
He's had some behavioral issues. I think he tore his mom's house up.
It's scenes like this on repeat. Marshals going house to house, locating and recovering children who are considered missing and endangered because of their age or circumstances. For now, the ones we saw reunited or safely located have a better chance at safety and success later in life. And the operation led to the safe recovery of a 16-year-old girl from Michigan. She was found in Indiana with a 30-year-old man that marshals say was abusing her and keeping her against her will. That man was arrested. Henna?
Incredible job by the marshals. Great job on this story and getting this exclusive. Evan Lambert, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider.
16 and 30, that's so gross. I can't look at a 16-year-old or even somebody in their early 20s and really find them attractive. They look so young to me, but I mean, that's what some of these people want. And I'm glad to see things shift because, yeah, child runaways are treated or were treated as criminals. When I was 12, I ran away for 2 weeks and nobody asked me why. Nobody asked me why I ran away. Nobody asked me what I was running from. I was in deep shit when I finally got caught, and it was a big deal. The police were not nice to me. And I ran away because home was pretty rough and my mom was pretty abusive. My mom had borderline personality disorder and my dad died like a few months prior, and nobody decided, oh, maybe she needs therapy. No, they did not do that. But things have changed, so I'm hoping the kids get resources and that things are investigated to know that they're being returned to a safe home. So in California, well, not just California, this happens in other areas too, where they have like street takeovers and sideshows and stuff like that when they think they're in the Fast and Furious with cars. And the police are starting to crack down on this in San Francisco. I know in Houston they're also cracking down on it. I think it's so stupid. I mean, I guess they don't have anywhere to go far enough away, because when I was into cars, like when the Fast and Furious came out, we drove like out of our way to the middle of nowhere to do stupid shit with our car. We didn't do stuff like this in the cities or shut down, like they do in the Fast and Furious. We never did that, but they are.
Weeks ago, right in the middle of the sideshow, a San Jose police officer was attacked while rushing to help an injured spectator. Today, authorities announced 7 arrests in that case. KTV's Ann Rubin joins us now from San Jose. And Ann, this is really part of a much bigger picture crackdown on sideshows in using technology and the law to hold offenders accountable.
Yeah, authorities want people to know if you bring a sideshow to San Jose, there will be consequences. In this case, there have been 7 arrests so far, and police say more could be coming. When this San Jose officer was attacked in the thick of a sideshow, the video went viral. But that fleeting fame will have lasting consequences, according to the police chief.
Be assured, we will find you, we will arrest you, we will send a resounding message to you and your fellow lawbreakers. Not in San Jose.
And with that, they announced the arrest of 7 people, including a juvenile. Some had jumped on the police car. Others tried to smash the windows. At least one allegedly threatened the officer with knives as he rushed to help an unconscious spectator.
These rolling incubators of crime are fueled by a mob mentality and a perverse thirst for internet fame.
But that notoriety may be their undoing. Police say they're using social media as well as video from body-worn cameras and license plate readers to track them down. They're also using data science to track sideshow trends and a collaboration with the University of Chicago Crime Lab to establish best practices in dealing with them.
We are setting a very clear expectation in San Jose that we're not going to tolerate sideshows. We've passed laws that are indicative of that. It is illegal to promote or spectate at sideshows, not just to be the one driving the vehicle.
The hope is that these arrests and felony charges will act as a deterrent and keep sideshows out of San Jose. If not, the district attorney says participants be warned, this is no game.
Will find themselves in real trouble, in real jail, behind real bars.
The people arrested came from all over the Bay Area. One of them was even from Arizona. Officials say dealing with sideshows is actually a regional problem. They're now establishing a working group to try to make a more regional solution. In San Jose, Ann Rubin.
So does that mean they're all going to work together? Because, I mean, for that to be featured in the Fast and Furious over 20 years ago, clearly this has been a huge problem for a long time. You know, like, clearly that's been an issue. So, let's see. We have some more news out of California. There is an FBI probe happening right now with a family there. So let's find out what it's about. I have no idea.
More about the FBI raid at Oakland Mayor Shane Tao's home yesterday and multiple other raids in the city
Oakland
connected
Mayor.
to the Dong family. KTVU's Amanda Quintana is in our newsroom live with more information about who this family is.
Yeah, well, Crystal, that is the big question here. Who are the Dongs and how are they connected to Mayor Tao? The FBI has been tight-lipped about what they're investigating, but what we can tell you is the Dong family is a politically powerful family in Oakland. They've been investigated by the city before. Now they're the subject of a federal investigation. 4 Oakland locations raided by the FBI Thursday morning. One of them, the home of Mayor Sheng Tao. The other 3 connected to the Dong family. So who are the Dongs? Well, the company owns the recycling company Cal Waste Solutions, Oakland's official recycling collector. This is a photo of the family from the Cal Waste website. Siblings David, the CEO, Christina, CFO, and Victor, vice president. In 2017, the city of Oakland sued Cal Waste for overcharging customers by about $6 million. They were forced to refund about 2,000 multifamily building owners. The Cal Waste office was one of the spots raided by the FBI and IRS. 2 homes were also raided. David Dong's on Skyline Boulevard, where the postal inspector was also there, and his son Andy Dong's on Viewcrest Court. A neighbor told us he saw 2 people put in handcuffs there.
All of these places that they have searched indicates that they have been working on an investigation for quite some time and were able to convince a judge that they needed to go into all of these places.
The Dong family is heavily involved in politics and fundraising for politicians in both state and local government. Their social media pages are full of photos with prominent politicians. Andy's Instagram featuring Attorney General Rob Bonta and Governor Gavin Newsom. David's Facebook showing photos with Senator Tim Kaine and John Kerry posted just last week. In 2019, the Oakland Public Ethics Commission launched an investigation into allegations that Cal Waste had been funneling illegal campaign contributions to at least 5 city council candidates, including Tao. Later, a campaign finance watchdog launched its own investigation into Andy Dong for laundering campaign contributions.
Well, there is at least probable cause to suspect that there might be some federal violation here, and that's how you get an FBI raid. So my understanding is that prior inquiries into this family involved campaign contributions, which are typically a local or state issue. So what you have with a federal raid here is questions about whether or not federal laws were violated.
The Dongs also lead the Vietnamese American Business Association, which helped sponsor and plan Mayor Tao's trip to Vietnam last summer to promote trade. Mayor Tao's office and the Dong family have not responded to our request for comment, and as for the FBI, they don't plan to send out an update for at least a week.
No, the FBI is going to keep that close to their chest. Yeah, I mean, the more that I learned about politics, the more corrupt it is. Miami has always been super corrupt, but there's so much stuff that's come out about people there. And then Houston, we've had multiple scandals in the city and the county with using money incorrectly. So Houston is not on the coast. It's like an hour and a half or so inland, I guess. But Houston's at a greater risk of hurricanes because they're not that far from the coast. But yeah. So Amy has not seen the video of Proctor yelling at people to get off his lawn. Didn't play it yet, so because Amy hasn't seen it, I'm definitely going to play it. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, and like I never thought that I would get involved in politics, but politics and public safety go hand in hand, and I hate politics. I hate politics with like every fiber of my being, but in order to get anything done, you have to be involved in politics. And I hate it because I feel like I'm wearing a mask when here, like with you guys, I can be myself. Well, not even, I can be myself like 90%. I can't be like, totally myself because then my videos would get removed from YouTube. So yeah, I just feel like politics, you have to like, always be on your best behavior and can't, it's just so fake. Everybody's, oh, hello, how are you? Shake your hand. I don't like you, but I'm going to talk to you. And like when it comes, politics, I have to get, I have to be nice to everybody. Just because you see me with a photo of a politician doesn't mean I love them or endorse them. It means that I am trying to work with them for the greater good. And sometimes we have to work with people that we don't like in politics. But we have a lot of corrupt people in politics too. I hate politics. Anyway, so let's watch Proctor yell at people to get off his lawn. That's a great segue.
We have our team in place tonight at 6, but let's begin with NBC 10 investigator Kathy Curran. Kathy, you just spoke exclusively with one of the central figures in this case, State Police Trooper Michael Proctor. We all know his name, and it sounds like he wasn't thrilled to see you.
Well, Glenn, there's a lot of pressure on the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor. We heard the disturbing texts about Karen Reed that he sent to friends, family members, and coworkers. There's an internal investigation by state police, and we know there's an ongoing federal investigation into how this case was handled. Proctor was at his home in Canton this afternoon when the Karen Reed case ended in a mistrial. We caught up with him just a few moments ago to ask him his thoughts on the outcome of the case.
Trooper Proctor, Kathy Curran from NBC 10. We'd like to ask you some questions. Do you think your actions impacted the outcome of the trial?
Get off of our lawn. Right?
I'm not on your lawn. I'm on the street. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I fully support my husband. Karen Reed is a murderer.
You support your husband?
And you heard it there. His wife fully supports him and called Karen Reed a murderer. Testimony in the case showed Proctor was familiar with witnesses in this case. We reached out to state police about Proctor's current status with the department. They told us he's still employed and had no further comment at this time. Kathy?
I couldn't even hear him. I'm glad that they put the closed caption because I couldn't even hear what he said, but I heard his wife. And they were saying get off their lawn even when they weren't even up that far yet. They were in the street. It's kind of funny. All right. Moving on. There was a family in West Virginia that adopted children, a white couple that adopted black children and kept them in a shed. A horrible case of neglect and abuse, and anybody that can adopt kids and treat them that way, you're choosing to have these children. Like, you have to go through a whole process. And to do that to them is horrible. Those poor kids have already been through so much. Whoops. Whoops, whoops, whoops. I need to change screens. Hold on. No, stop moving. There we go. Rewind. Thank you. I change screens. Here we go.
Now to a shocking case out of West Virginia where a couple is facing charges after some of their adopted children were found locked in a shed living in deplorable conditions. Jean Whitefeather and Donald Lance are accused of adopting 5 kids from a shelter, targeting them for forced labor specifically because of their race. The sheriff's office says they found some of the children in October locked inside a barn during a welfare check at the couple's home. The 2 children told authorities they had been inside the small room for about 12 hours when they were found. Neighbors reported that the children were also forced to perform farm labor and were not allowed inside the home. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes joins us now. Khalif, this is just a horrible case of neglect, just wretched what these children went through. But let's talk about the charges that this couple faces.
I mean, you're talking about kidnapping. You're talking about, well, let's go back. Disgusting. I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind. When I first looked at this story, it was like, am I really reading this? Is it a parody? Like, what is actually happening? But yeah, the trafficking of human trafficking is the number one thing. Child abuse, neglect. It runs the gamut of anything, the worst of the worst that you can think about. This didn't just start in West Virginia. It actually started in Washington. They were under investigation in Washington and moved to West Virginia. Sold both of those properties. The attempt to try to pay their bond. They had a $400,000 combined bond. The judge was like, nope, too much. We'll figure something out. We'll make it $500,000 for each of you all. And they kept that money. And they said, because this property was used in the commission of this crime, we believe now it's turned into contraband. And so you can't even get your money back. We'll hold that money until this case is resolved. And if this money goes anywhere, it should go to those children. I mean, this is just absolutely disgusting for sure.
So, I mean, do they face any charges of slavery? Because we mentioned that they supposedly adopted these kids for that purpose.
That would be the neglect. That would be the child abuse. That would be the human trafficking.
You're not going to see that spelled out.
You wouldn't. But what you would see is if it was based on race, you could now open the door for the hate crime charges. That's where you'll see that. And if West Virginia is one of the states that doesn't have it, which is only a handful that don't, what you will see is the federal government will step in. So when you connect the race that was the number one factor for motivating you to do this charge, that's when the hate crime will come in, and then this charge will be elevated for sure. So that's why the race was involved specifically, and obviously the investigators know more than we know because they're saying they individually target these kids based on their race. And so it had to be text messages, phone calls, something that they know more than just they'd had this adopted group of 5 kids.
You would think that with all the checks and balances in the adoption agency's process, that something would have come up. But just the couple, you said that they were, under investigation in another state, Washington, I believe.
Correct.
And then, moved to a completely different state, probably to avoid those charges. Does that all play into the severity of their charges? Is that difficult to prove intent there?
Taking folks across state lines, also another charge. That's where you'll have that human trafficking component when you take someone from one location to another location against their will. That's where you'll have that. But what I can say is you get these kind of weird cases. As a criminal defense attorney, I get cases all the time, and I'm like baffled and I'm dumbfounded, right? Yeah. This is one where you're not just scratching your head. You're like, well, how do I defend this? So I listened to one of the arguments that the defense attorney made, and he said, well, there was a key in the barn. They could have got out. It was a misunderstanding. I'm like, if you look at the police report, it said the kids had sores on their feet, looked like they hadn't bathed in a few days, hadn't been fed. I mean, I won't say it's not defensible, but it has to be a serious defense and a reckoning to try to figure out how you can defend this situation and ensure that they don't go to jail, because based on what I see right now, they're going to prison for a long time.
Well, I mean, you talk about the key that was in the barn, supposedly. I mean, that doesn't play into the mentality of these children and what they've been through and what they've been trained to think because of the situation they were in. Just absolutely horrible. And hopefully the kids will someday be able to get beyond this and get
for sure.
Thank you.
Those poor babies. I don't know how anybody could do that to children. Like, regardless of what race they are or origin, whatever, they're still children. That's disgusting. I can't be mean to an animal. I can't be mean to a mouse. I found a mouse in my house once and I couldn't even kill it. Like, they deserve the worst of the worst. Moving on to New York. There is a Venezuela gang. Whoops, I just clicked the wrong thing. No.
CBS 4 News at 5 begins with breaking.
Okay, I guess we'll do this one first before I go to the Venezuela gang, since this one started. So, a former Colts player, his son has been missing for 11 days, and the family has not been cooperating. So they're doing an abuse investigation now because the kid's been missing. So I hope that the kid is okay, and I hope that they find him.
News in the search for a missing 14-year-old boy from Logansport. That teen is the son of a former Colt. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob Donaldson.
And I'm Chelsea Helms. Indiana State Police confirms it has made contact with the boy's parents, but the teen's still missing after 11 days.
CBS 4's Eric Graves got that call from state police with the new information. He joins us in the studio with the breaking details. Eric.
Yeah, Bob and Chelsea. Bryson Muir was last seen leaving his grandmother's house more than a week ago. This is what he looks like right here. He's the son of Daniel and Kristen Muir. Daniel is a former Indianapolis Colt and a person police have been trying to talk to for days now. For the first time since state police got involved, they made contact with the Muir parents, but police say they still don't know where Bryson is. Bryson's believed to be endangered. He left his grandmother's house near Cleveland with his mother in a white 2015 Chevy Suburban on June 16th. But that vehicle was pulled over minutes later and Bryson wasn't in it. At that time, Bryson had this black eye that you're seeing on your screen. His grandmother had called police because she was worried he was being beaten. Now, I'm told state police and the Cass County DCS finally got a hold of Bryson's parents this morning and went onto the large property where they live in rural Logansport. You're seeing this video we took yesterday when we visited the property. Now, it's owned by a group called Servant Leaders Foundation. It's a nonprofit religious group based out of Kokomo. State police tell us the Muirs are beginning to cooperate with the investigation, but Bryson is still considered missing. If you know anything about where he is, you're asked to call police. We do have much more information on this story on our website right now. Bob and Chelsea?
CBS.
Oh. Okay. This cat doesn't know what she wants. She always has to be in the way, and then anyway. Yeah, cults are terrifying because you never know how brainwashed somebody is or what they've been convinced to do. So, New York, the NYPD is having issues with a Venezuelan gang in New York City, which doesn't surprise me. We've had a lot of immigrants come over. There's a lot of stuff going on in Venezuela. So, let's see what's going on in New York.
Police are trying to tackle the rapidly escalating violent crime among Venezuelan gang members in the city who have gotten into New York.
Fox 8's Linda Schmidt talked to the NYPD, who says this crime wave is one of their greatest challenges. She joins us live from the newsroom now. Linda, what can you tell us tonight?
Well, you know, basically what you just said right there, this is one of the NYPD's biggest challenges right now. Now, the NYPD expects the migrant Venezuelan gang crimes to actually get worse in the city before it gets better.
They're waving the guns around.
Correct.
Waving guns and flashing gang signs on this video. The NYPD says these are suspected members of the ruthless Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which has been infiltrating the U.S. for the last 2 years. NYPD Assistant Chief of Detectives Jason Savino telling me it is believed this video was made while the gang members were in Ecuador, and its purpose is to recruit new members.
Then, when you fast forward, you see the same individuals where? In Times Square. So that's our concern.
The NYPD says Tren de Aragua has been making it over the border with the migrant influx and is getting established in New York.
What we do see is they are trying to grow.
The gang has gone from petty crimes like shoplifting and stealing cell phones and jewelry to all-out shootouts in the streets. Alleged gang member Bernardo Raul Mata recently confessing to police that gang members are being instructed to shoot police officers. Mata is charged with shooting 2 officers after they stopped him for riding a moped the wrong way on a one-way street in Queens. In court, an assistant district attorney revealing what Mata told investigators about the gang.
Tren de Aragua members are smuggling firearms into city shelters inside food delivery packages. That way they don't have to go through the metal detector.
guns being smuggled into migrant shelters in food delivery packages that are not being screened. The gang violence is escalating, and now drugs are coming into the picture.
We're just starting to see a drug called Tusi, which is a pink cocaine type substance.
It seems like this is a huge challenge.
It's as big of a challenge as we faced.
The NYPD has faced difficult challenges in the past and is determined to win this fight to keep New Yorkers safe.
We're having success. We're taking down networks of individuals. We're up to the task and we'll accomplish it.
Now, today, I also reached out to City Hall about security and metal detectors at the city-run migrant shelters, and I asked them why food containers are not being screened for possible weapons or drugs. Now, I was told those items are supposed to be screened every single time. And now the city is now retraining security personnel at all city-run migrant shelters. Natasha, Teresa.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying. So I looked up 2C because I've never heard of it, and I mean, not that I'm a drug expert, but I definitely stay up to date what's out there because there's so much stuff that can kill people out there now, and try to warn people about it. Okay, so 2C started out in Venezuela. They had labs discovered in Peru, Panama, Uruguay, Costa Rica. Oh. Okay, so 2C is ketamine with tramadol. But in Venezuela, they said it's LSD with MDMA. And somewhere else, they say it's cocaine, methamphetamine, and LSD. So, yeah, 2C is a narcotic name brand. Okay. Oh, so it's... Oh. Okay, so there was this chemical called 2CB, which I am familiar with. It is a very strong hallucinogenic. So it's something that they made back in the 70s, and in the 90s they were experimenting with some stuff. So I'll share this in the chat, but yeah, tell your kids not to do pink drugs. Tell your kids not to do any drugs, but especially the pink drugs, because this seems pretty dangerous. If it has anything like those synthetic hallucinogens, it's going to be way stronger than like normal LSD, and it's a lot harder to tell reality from what's fake. So, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Let's see, what am I going to have be the last video? I think we're going to watch a video about a groundhog. And then we'll finish it with the groundhog story.
Right here only tonight at 6. You know, our city's history comes to us in many different ways. But when you throw out your trash, do you ever think of it as history? In Louisville's Germantown neighborhood, I came across a local businessman who's getting ready to turn 19th century trash into the only museum of its kind in Louisville. Along with chief photojournalist Philip Burrell, I found that he wouldn't be in business if it hadn't been for the animal lurking below.
It's amazing that the porcelain holds up.
You are looking at Louisville's trash.
Every third corner was either a bar or a pharmacy. I have a dental hygienist who works like this on my teeth.
Everything now beautifully cleaned of dirt by the hands of Patrick Donnelly. And preserved.
This is a syringe. It would have been a needle, rusted, gone. And this is a glass plunger.
1800s kids' dolls, now in pieces.
Those are the two legs that came with that torso. The head is articulated as well.
From 1870, 5 years after the Civil War ended.
So it's a holy water font probably from a nun's residence over at St. Teresa's.
Right to the American craftsman era of the 1920s.
1,000 bottles, easily. 2,000 tons of broken glass.
Welcome to Donnelly's future museum, the Mary Street Midden Project. Midden, the nice word for dump. It's peeling back an often overlooked slice of Louisville's wild Rivertown history.
These are vulcanite and porcelain false teeth.
So where were these found?
Oh, about 4 feet down.
Underground?
Underground. Digging through, and I'm like, teeth.
Donnelly bought this building on Mary Street in Germantown a few years ago, not knowing what was underneath it.
The city actually paid them to allow their neighbors and local businesses to deposit their trash here.
When the open trash dump was closed in the 1920s, this building was then built.
The toys of the day, what'd you find over here?
Everybody had a doll. Those dolls were all made of bisque, and unfortunately, they were very fragile. In fact, I find myself...
This is almost a house of horrors.
Yeah, it is. Every time you see this little face emerging out of the soil.
One day, Donnelly went to the basement that has a dirt floor, and suddenly...
That's when I found my first 2 beer bottles, and I thought, it's probably a construction worker, throwing their beer bottles under the... But then there was porcelain, and there was stoneware, and there was baby doll heads.
It was the help of a furry friend.
Yes, Phyllis the groundhog.
Phyllis, whom Donnelly recorded, piqued his curiosity, and he kept on digging and digging, discovering along the way that Louisvillians loved Lee and Perrins.
They were the Worcestershire sauce, and the style of the bottle tells you that, and everybody copied that style who made a comparable product.
Welch's grape juice.
In the early days of glass, they were exploring with how do you keep the product airtight.
And of course, whiskey.
That's a gallon whiskey jug. This is Phil Hollenbach, which is Hollenbach is Fortuna whiskey. That's Garvin Brown, who was one of the sons of J.T.S. Brown.
How old is this bottle?
That's going to be 1880s. He started the company around 86, I want to say. This is another free sample for Paul Jones whiskey. Paul Jones is the creator of Four Roses.
Plus a truly remarkable find right here in a time of segregation, proving the trash dump was equal to all.
It says Coates Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church. Well, this church still exists.
But take a closer look.
It's a whiskey jug, but it's also a collection jar.
Because of the...
That's a penny slot.
Real estate agent Sam Heine's interest in Louisville's historic homes takes him into many of them in this area.
At the time that was a dump, this was the outskirts of Louisville whenever it was centered around downtown and the West End and Market Street. And so that's why they put a dump here, because it was further out than most people lived.
Donnelly has architect's plans for his new museum already drawn up. And another person's trash, well, he says, not his treasure.
I'm not going to monetize the artifacts. The artifacts are what the museum is going to be about, and the story of trash, and that's all going to be revealed through your experience of the museum. So my trash is everyone's treasure.
So what about Phyllis? He would leave her treats, and
the next day I'll come in and there'll be a little bottle sitting right on top. I think she was thanking me.
Phyllis died of old age, but in a tribute, Donnelly named his company Groundhog Archaeology, right after the founder of the Mary Street Midden Project.
Rest in peace, Phyllis. Well, we never want to hear the word pandemic again, but ironically, this dump covers the first pandemic, material from 1918. Patrick is the former owner of the Zephyr Gallery that was in New Lou. If you want to learn more about the Mary Street Midden Project and help him with any donations, you can go to his website. It's groundhogarchaeology.com.
That's cute. Whoops. I clicked stuff. That's adorable. I love that. I like ending on a positive note. We did have some pretty horrible stories today. I will be back Thursday morning at 6:45 Central, 7:45 Eastern with another crime recap. And I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central. I can't think. 6 p.m. Eastern, excuse me. I swear, time zones always mess me up. We'll be back. Raul and I will be back with Catch Justice. We will have a normal episode. We do have some people to discuss and stories for you guys to share and help get these cases solved and get a resolution for the families. And that's all I have for today. Make sure that you're following me on Catch Justice and all my other stuff. I did add a Amazon link to my link tree. I do have one link for donations for things that I use for homicide victims' families. And then I have merch and a wish list down at the bottom because I had a couple people ask me for a wish list. And now my Amazon is talking to me because I said Amazon. But yes, I will consistently be back Tuesdays and Thursdays on this channel, and Wednesdays Catch Justice. Maybe this Sunday I'll do Love After Lockup. It depends what's going on. We have kiddo this summer, so we'll see. But I love you guys. I appreciate you joining me so early in the morning, and I appreciate when you guys join me anytime. I'm happy to have anybody watching me when I'm on. Because you got this is so much more than I ever had when I was on Twitch. But I love you all, and I hope that you have a great day. Bye.